So let's create some
rumble from down under.
I usually like to approach the bass tone from two different directions. First from the low end and then from the high end. And so for this bass tone, we are also going to use the dual tone function because we are going to use two different amps. Now first I'll show you the amp that's creating the actual bass and fundamentals and low end of this tone. And for this I use the 1974 Rock Classic amp simulation. This is based on the 1974 Ampeg amp, which is really good. And for this whole patch we're also not going to use impulse responses. For this I use cap simulations from the X3 itself. So on this one I use the 1x18 amp 360 because this one has a lot of low end to it and it's actually pretty loud. It's way louder than any other bass cavern here. So make sure that your tones do not clip. I actually forgot to mention this at the beginning. Make sure none of your tones clip. So watch out for the little clipping light on your audio device or your X3 that it does not light up at any time. For this one I also pull down the volume trim of the whole patch to -12 dB. Now let's go through the parameters here. The drive I don't set too high to 27% because the low end tone I don't want to have any distortion in it. It's coming later. And the second tone, bass and low mids, I crank all the way up. The high mid and treble I leave at default positions, which is 75%. And volume at center position. So now let's go to the gate. There's not a lot of gate going on since there's no distortion. You also don't get a lot of annoying noises. Stomp box, this is very important to me because this one, the bass overdrive, takes out a lot of boxy mid-range frequencies, which are very annoying, and adds some more attack to it and aggressiveness. I love this one. So I leave gain, treble and bass at default positions, and the drive I pull back to 60% because again it's not supposed to be overdriven. Now here on the amp section I use the 20 dynamic mic. A little bit of compression again, -20 dB, add some more attack to it. Then here EQing to shape the tone a little further and make it more defined. I pull out some of the sub bass section at 70 Hz and boost 150 Hz to get more growl in it. Now I want to mention here the EQ in your whole tone setup, no matter what kind of plugins or audio device or amp model you're using. The EQ here is only to shape your tone further. It does by no means replace the EQing in the mixing stage. We are still going to apply a lot of EQs there. So that's it for the low bass. Let's just check what this sounds like on its own. So see, it's just the fundamentals, very low. So let's go to the distortion part. You see I use the big bottom amp simulation for this. And in connection with this also a cap simulation again, a bass cap simulation, the 2x15 California. For the parameters again, the drive I set to maximum 40%. I don't go higher because then it sounds very muddy to me and uncontrolled. I just want this to add more crunch and a little bit of distortion in it. The bass I leave at center position, middle and treble all the way up, and presence to 20%. And volume also center position. Then the gates, there's some more gate going on at -50 dB. It's the threshold and decay at 0%. Stomp box again, the bass overdrive. Here again I leave everything to default position except the drive I keep a bit higher at 66%, maybe even up to 70. You can tweak around with that if you want. But more than 70 also starts to sound more muddy to me. But just try it for yourself. I implore you, tweak around a lot and try to find that tone that suits you best. Then on the amp I use the 112 dynamic mic. Again, a bit of compression, -20 dB is the threshold. gain at 0. And here some major EQing again. I cut out all the sub bass and bass section because I leave this to the other tone. At 100 Hz, minus 12 dB all the way down. I boost 800 Hz a bit. And cut out the very high fizziness up there. But since on the bass you're only working with very low frequencies, there's actually not a lot going on up there, but just to be safe I do it anyways. So let's just check what this sounds like on its own. So you see it sounds a little bit like a telephone, some crunchiness to it, but if we pull those two together, it actually sounds quite nice. There you have a decent bass tone. So now I'm going to show you a second bass tone, which I made just 2 days ago. You can start off with the low tone I just showed you at first. And we are not going to make a whole lot of changes. This is just this one tone we are using, no dual tone action going on. We are also going to apply an impulse response to it. So first we get rid of the cap in here. Since this was a very loud cap and it's gone now, we need to crank up the volume again. Also the trim volume. Then I need to pull down the gain of my mic. So, and EQ we boost 800 Hz. And that's actually all the changes we're going to make to it. So that's the tone we use from the X3 now for this new tone. As you can probably guess, now it's going to sound more clearer because I don't use the distortion tone for it. Now let's go to the impulse. Please click this general area to go back to my part 3 tutorial where I show you how you can use impulses. Now this one is an Ampeg 8x10 D6AH impulse. I also provide a link in the description which leads you to a forum with a whole list of download links for impulses, and there are some bass impulses included somewhere at the top. So let's just listen in what this one sounds like. So a little something like this. Now there you have 2 tones, one nice distorted and crunchy, one more cleaner. Don't forget to tweak around a lot and try to find that tone that suits you best.